Welcome to Seaboard's Environmental, Health, and Safety Induction. The purpose of this presentation is to let you know the safety, health and environmental requirements to work on site, in order to prevent accidents, injury, illnesses, environmental degradation or pollution, property damage and other losses during the work activities. You are responsible for understanding and observing all the safety procedures and developing your work in compliance with all the rules, instructions and policies. Our goal is to achieve safe, efficient and profitable operations that are free of incidents. Now, let's look on the Seaboard's quality, safety, health, and environmental policy, which you can find in the card that we give you when you arrive to our facilities. We're committed to provide to our clients, shareholders and the community, quality power plant management services and reliable energy, applying practices that preserve the company assets, protect the environment and prevent human injury. By maintaining the asset value of company power plants, managing our operation efficiently, safely and responsibly, optimizing costs, reducing identifiable risks to people and minimizing environmental pollution. Ensuring compliance with applicable codes, rules and regulations. Monitoring and measuring the quality of our services, understanding and meeting the requirements of our customers. Continuously improving and ensuring ongoing effectiveness of our quality management system. Promoting engagement of people at all levels of the organization, through constant motivation and enhancement of skills and knowledge. Ensuring professional and prompt handling of all management responsibilities, and providing necessary resources, for the support of the power plants. Prior to the beginning of the work, your supervisor will show you the designated areas to carry out your work, as well as the areas to be used to get dressed, eating areas, toilets, showers, lockers, and the resting areas during work interruption. Please keep all areas and offices clean and in good conditions. Now we'll see our general safety rules. Please pay attention. Smoking is prohibited at the Seaboard facility, except in the designated smoking area. You shall immediately notify to your supervisor or the Seaboard safety officer the occurrence of any unsafe acts, unsafe conditions and incidents, injuries, illnesses, near miss, property damage, that affect persons, processes, property and the environment, chemical release, leak or spill, within the company. In case of being involved on an accident, you must contribute to the event investigation process, to identify the causes and implement the necessary actions to prevent recurrence. In the event of a serious incident, the incident scene shall not be disturbed until released, after incident investigation, except for circumstances where imminent danger exists to those performing any emergency services. Maintain workstation in a tidy condition. Good housekeeping promotes safety and can prevent many accidents. You shall maintain general cleanliness all around the site, as well as your tools, materials and equipment clean and in order. A clean and tidy work environment can contribute to minimize accidents, such as slips, trips, falls, collisions and inadvertent exposure to chemicals. Please keep your work free of oil, grease, mud, and slippery materials. Reduce fire hazards due to control of combustible materials and unblocked access to fire protection equipment, such as fire extinguishers, hydrants, hose cabinets, monitors, doors, corridors, boxes with firefighter outfit. Improves traffic flow for people and equipment. Please, keep the floors of workplaces, corridors and exits free of obstructions that impede the safe movement of people both in normal tasks and in emergency situations. Use machines, equipment or vehicles only if authorized. Use of cell phone or tablet, talking or texting, while operating equipment, machines or vehicles is prohibited. Your supervisor will let you know the equipment and tools you are authorized to use, and the areas you are authorized to enter. Heavy equipment, forklifts, trucks, mechanical shovels, mobile platforms, etc., shall be operated only by drivers who have been properly trained and are authorized to operate such heavy machinery. Only trained and experienced operators are allowed to use a crane. Vehicles may only be parked on the specially designated areas and traffic rules shall be complied without exceptions. Reverse parking is required at Seaboard facilities and the maximum driving speed is 15 km per hour, 9 miles per hour. Vehicles and equipment that are leaking fluids, for example, fuel, oil, hydraulic fluid, coolant, etc., are prohibited from entering Seaboard facilities. No personnel shall be transported in the back of vehicles, for example, pickup truck beds. Passengers are only permitted to ride in vehicles with a designed passenger cab, seats, and seat belts. Before using lifting equipment, an assessment of the risks involved must be performed and the resulting preventive actions must be implemented. A pre-lift planning session and job briefing shall be held for all personnel involved with the lift. At work, you must be always properly uniformed with work clothes and the appropriate personal protective equipment for each task. Hard hat and safety shoes with steel or composite toe shall always be used at the site, except for work within offices. You will be provided with all the necessary safety elements according to the hazards related to the tasks to be done: safety helmet, safety shoes, hearing protectors, anti-fog visual protectors or safety glasses, reflective vest or high-visibility clothing, 5-point harness for work at height, safety gloves, etc. If you are a contractor's worker, your supervisor shall provide you all the necessary safety elements before starting work, and shall replace it immediately in case of scratch, breakage, aging or excessive soiling. You shall wear ear protection in areas where the noise level is over 85 decibels. If you cannot hear your buddy talking in normal voice from a distance of 1 meter, 3 feet, noise is more probably over 85 decibels. Use safety glasses, safety goggles or face shields whenever performing work that involves a risk of flying solid or liquid particles, production of dangerous gases, flashing, or any condition considered hazardous for the eyes. Use safety gloves if your work involves a risk to exposure to chemicals, or when you handle equipment, machinery, hot objects, or other objects causing a mechanical hazard. Gloves and protective sleeves shall be appropriate to the task and used to protect the hands, wrist area, and forearms from sharp edges, abrasion, chemicals, electrical contact, and other hazards as necessary. Breathing protection is mandatory at sites where dust, fumes, mists, and/or toxic vapors exist. For grinding, welding, and cutting operations you shall wear goggles, in conjunction with a face shield or welding hood. Anyone within 10 feet of grinding, welding, and cutting operations shall wear goggles. Welders shall use shaded eye protection appropriate for the type of work when welding or cutting is being performed. Welder helmets shall be used during all arc welding or arc cutting operations. When applying spray coatings, use eye protection, respiratory protection as necessary and solvent-resistant gloves. When performing work on energized substation equipment or when within 10 feet of exposed energized substation equipment you shall wear 100% natural fiber clothing and flame-resistant clothing. Garments worn shall not have any screen prints, iron-on prints, or other ink prints unless the garment is made of all natural fibers or a flame-resistant material. This also applies to any garments worn under flame-resistant clothing. Protective footwear shall also have electrical hazard-rated soles that cover the entire foot with no openings. Accidents arising from the use of hand and power tools are frequently caused by a human error, misuse of tools, or use of defective tools. You shall use appropriate tools for each task, solely for the work for which they were designed, and take care for them, according with manufacturer's recommendations. When using hand and power tools, workers are exposed to the hazards of falling, flying, abrasive and splashing objects, or to harmful dusts, fumes, mists, vapors, or gases. All materials, tools and equipment, which are not owned by Seaboard, must be notified in writing for entry and exit authorization purposes. You shall inspect tools and equipment before use. Worn, defective, or unsafe tools and equipment shall be immediately removed from service and properly marked until repaired by a qualified person or discarded. Please secure all tools and materials stored on elevated work platforms. Tools shall not be modified in any way that would prohibit inspection for visual cracks or defects. When working around machinery with rotating or moving parts, assure gloves, ties, long sleeves, loose clothing and long hair may not become entangled in equipment, and do not wear loose jewelry outside clothing. Do not remove without authorization any protection, safety guard or danger signal. If a protective device must be removed to be able to perform a task, it is the responsibility of the person who removes it to ensure that it is replaced as soon as possible after having completed the task. Please notify your supervisor if you notice any safety device which has been altered. Where work is being carried out on roofs, floors or walkways which contain openings, these openings will be suitably covered and/or blocked off as appropriate. Safety signs warn about dangers related to the workplace and to avoid unnecessary accidents. The safety signs are divided in the following categories. Hazard, A yellow warning triangle with a black border signifies all potential hazards. The symbol within the triangle varies according to the hazard. Prohibition, a predominantly red and white safety sign indicating that a certain behavior or activity is prohibited. Fire equipment, a red and white sign is used to denote all fire equipment. All firefighting equipment must be easily accessible. Mandatory, a blue and white sign denotes that a certain action must be taken, like use of protective equipment. Safe condition signs, these signs should be used to indicate escape routes, emergency exits, first aid equipment, emergency showers and similar signs. Red danger or do not enter tape or hard barricades is used to restrict access into medium or high hazard areas, for example, suspended loads, dropped objects, imminent danger, hot, live electrical work, etc. Only personnel authorized by the person in charge of the restricted area are permitted to access or pass through a red barricade. Yellow caution tape is used to alert personnel to minor hazards, for example, slip, trip hazards, housekeeping issues, hot surfaces, etc. Any person may access into a yellow barricade area as long as they have familiarized themselves with the hazards detailed on the signage. Spillages must be cleaned up immediately. Oil or chemical spills may occur due to leakage from equipment, motor vehicles, or storage containers. Other common reasons for oil spillage are valves in a wrong position, loose valves, not properly tightened pipe connections and malfunction in the system. In case of spillage, notify immediately to your supervisor. Any spillage of oils, greases, fuels, paints, etc., shall be immediately covered with sand or some suitable absorbent material, and cleaned. If the spill is of corrosive substances or other chemical agent, it must be neutralized and cleaned. Please follow all environmental and safety procedures and standards. No person under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs is allowed at the company premises. The use of or being under the influence of alcohol or any illicit drugs is prohibited without limitations. Any persons under such influence will be dismissed from the premises. Seaboard may, as part of the ongoing drug and alcohol abuse prevention program, perform random testing on any person assigned to work on the project or in case of reasonable suspicion. Post-incident screening may be performed in the event of an injury requiring treatment beyond basic first aid, property damage, vehicle accident, near-miss event. Any person found in possession of illegal substances, drugs, drug paraphernalia, or alcohol shall be permanently removed from the facilities. All weapons, including firearms, are prohibited at Seaboard's facilities. This includes storage in personal vehicles. Now we want to let you know the general risks associated with our processes. For the specific risks related to your job, a preliminary risks analysis shall be performed before the commencement of works. Electrical hazard, electric shock from contact with live parts, electric arc or explosion, falls, burns, shock. Fuels, flammable, may form explosive mixtures with air. Natural gas consists primarily of methane. In hazardous areas, special precautions need to be taken to tools and equipment from being a source of ignition. The atmosphere may need to be tested to determine if a flammable mixture is present. Testing may also be required at regular intervals or continuously while conducting work, in order to avoid hazardous situations, for example gas fires and explosions, and inhalation of natural gas or carbon monoxide, which forms in cases where natural gas is burning without a sufficient oxygen supply. In some specific areas, hearing protection must be worn. Workers exposed to noise with a level of 85 decibels or greater should wear hearing protection. Wear hearing protection when operating heavy equipment, power tools that generate noise, pumps or electric generators. Falling objects and low-level surfaces risk. It is important to protect the head, because of possibility of falling objects in different areas. The use of the helmet is also required to prevent head injuries from impact with low-level surfaces. Avoid contact with any receptacle containing chemicals, especially if you do not know their properties and risks. Consult the Safety Data Sheet, SDS. When necessary, assure ventilation is adequate or wear respiratory protection. When handling chemicals, you shall only use approved chemical containers and all containers shall be labeled. All gas cylinders, full or empty, shall be secured in the upright position without risk of falling over. Where removable caps are provided for valve protection, such caps shall be kept on cylinders at all times except when cylinders are in use. Do not lift cylinders by the cap. Empty cylinders shall be marked empty, segregated from full cylinders and returned to the supplier with all valves closed and valve protection caps in place. Do not use compressed air nor oxygen to dry hands or remove dust from clothing. Compressed air may be forced into the skin tissue, particularly if you have a small wound in the skin, resulting in air bubbles in the blood which could cause a heart stoppage. Confined spaces. Workers may have to enter an area where the atmosphere is likely to contain a toxic or harmful substance or to have an insufficient oxygen level or to be inflammable. The confined space atmosphere must be monitored and appropriate steps taken to prevent any hazards. We'll talk later about confined space entry permit. Water operations. All personnel working within 6 feet of, over, or in water shall wear a life vest or flotation device at all times. For diving operations, a dive plan shall be submitted for review and acceptance by Seaboard. Ring buoys are available for emergency rescue operations. After reviewing the general risks associated with our processes, let's take a look to our requirements related to preliminary risks analysis and work permits. A preliminary risks analysis shall be performed before the commencement of works. The preliminary risks analysis is a procedure which identifies the basic job steps and tasks and their associated hazards and risks, and develops safe operating procedures and hazard controls based on this analysis. The job coordinator completes and discusses it with the workers involved in the job before starting. The preliminary risks analysis, at least, must include general information about the work to be done, names of all the people who will perform the work, including the supervisor of the work, a brief description of the work to be done, the estimated date and duration of the work and the area where it will be performed. Tasks to be performed, step-by-step description of the work to be performed. List of possible risks or accidents that may occur in each of the steps or tasks listed in the work to be performed. A single task can have more than one risk. Describe the measures to be implemented to eliminate or reduce risks and avoid accidents during the completion of each step. The measures to eliminate or reduce risks may be engineering controls, for example blocking, de-energizing, access restriction, ventilation, anchorages, enclosures for noisy equipment, etc. Administrative controls, for example specific work procedures, work permits, inspections, alarms, signs, proper training, etc. Personal protective equipment. The use of personal protective equipment is acceptable when engineering controls are not feasible or do not eliminate the hazard completely, while engineering controls are being developed, when safe work practices do not provide sufficient additional protection, or during emergencies when engineering controls may not be feasible. The work permits are issued in the control room and formally authorize a job, specifying the controls to be implemented to protect personnel, equipment and the environment when potentially hazardous jobs are to be carried out at the plant. Work permits must be checked and renewed daily. Let's see the types of works which require the issuance of a work permit at Seaboard. Hot work. Welding, burning, grinding, use of powder-actuated tools, or similar work involving open flames, high temperatures or sparks, which represent an inherent risk of fire or damage. Works within confined spaces. Work within fuel tanks, lubricant tanks, oily water and other auxiliary tanks, and any other enclosed space that has limited exit or entry means. Works with hazardous energy sources, such as electrical, hydraulic, potential, chemical, thermal, pneumatic, mechanical, kinetic and radiation. Hazardous energy sources should be locked out and tagged out when the equipment is being serviced or maintained, to safeguard employees from an unexpected energization or startup, or a release of hazardous energy during service or maintenance activities. Before beginning lockout or tagout, work permit shall be obtained. You should never operate or attempt to operate any circuit breaker or disconnect switch or valve when is tagged or locked. Work at height. All work that is realized over more than 1.8 meters height, 6 feet, over a lower level and in places where there are no permanent platforms protected in all its sides with railings and retentions to avoid the fall. In this section we will discuss the key aspects to be considered related to fire prevention and safety at Seaboard facilities. On your first day at Seaboard, you must become familiar with the evacuation routes, and the location and proper use of the portable fire extinguishers in your work area. The fire alarm will alert you in case of need for evacuation or fire emergency response. If you are not specifically trained in the proper operation of any fire protection equipment, you should evacuate the building or plant immediately if a fire alarm sounds. Please, leave the area safely and orderly, using the nearest exit, and meet at the nearest muster station. Muster stations are located in the parking lots. The muster station indicates the safe place where people can contact in case of an evacuation of the building or plant, where a head count will be made to ensure that all occupants are present. Do not re-enter the building until instructed to do so by your supervisor or fire rescue worker. Only the emergency response team members will be allowed to enter the area. To practice these emergency and evacuation procedures, at least half-yearly, general evacuation drills are conducted. During drills you shall proceed as you do in case of a real emergency situation. We have a medical service at work, within the company premises, to provide the first response in case of accident. First aid facilities have a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week coverage. For contractors, prior to the commencement of the contractor's work, the conditions of coverage for the contractor's workers carrying out activities at the seaboard facilities shall be agreed. Finally, let's talk about our waste disposal procedure. For non-hazardous waste disposal, please consider the waste bin's colors. Green bins are for empty plastic bottles of water and other drinks to be recycled. If possible, please crush them and put the lid on, before throwing into the bin. Blue bins are for paper and card waste, clean and dry, to be recycled, waste of white and colored paper, cardboard, etc. Red bin are for empty tins, small metal scrap, etc. Black bins are for general waste, not hazardous waste that goes to the landfill which is not dangerous and not recyclable, for example food waste, garden waste, used napkins, disposable cups and plates, dirty or wet paper, etc. The following waste types are considered hazardous, and must be removed and treated only by service providers authorized by the Ministry of Environment. Burned fluorescent lamps containing mercury. Lead-acid batteries requiring replacement. Sludge and used oils. Empty plastic and metal drums or containers of chemical products. Biosanitary waste, infectious, from doctor's office. Oil-soaked rags, which must be discarded in oily waste cans, yellow containers for oily wastes, designed for this purpose. Toner and ink cartridges. Used rechargeable batteries, lithium, lithium-ion and zinc batteries as well as electronic parts. Never mix hazardous waste with non-hazardous waste. If during your work activities, some of these hazardous waste is generated, please inform your supervisor or EHS manager for disposal. Thanks for your attention. If you consider that the job you are performing has the potential to cause injury or damage, you must stop it, until such time a corrective measures have been implemented. We encourage you to make the matter of safety a personal commitment. Your attitude is the key factor in the accident prevention.